What's popular YouTube? Another day, another demo. We are here today to watch another special game. I mean, it's always a special game if it's on this channel. We got no time for the lame games, okay? These games, especially, of course, because a lot of them now are going to come from the major. People are like,
what the hell? Well, you hate simple. How come you haven't made a video on simple yet, man? What, you don't respect the major champion, bruh?
come on, guys. Jesus Christ. I haven't met anyone more insecure than Navi fans, especially simple fans. Y'all are the worst. I picked Navi to win this major from the beginning of the year. I picked Simple to be the MVP of it. We're all holding a diamond coin because of Simple today. No one's a bigger fan of Navi or Simple than I am. And you know what? I don't have to prove that. I'll prove it in my actions, and I'll continue to do so. And right now, the story for Navi is, do they have an era? Why don't we chat about that for a second? No, they don't have an era. Not yet. No, they won a major. They look like a team that has about 6 months more of continuous peaking where they will continue to dominate and no one will come close to them. It feels like the beginning of Astralis 2018, but you cannot just say it feels like the beginning of Astralis 2018 because that is something that has happened literally one time, okay? Astralis 2018 has literally happened one time. Their 3 years of dominance, 4 major reign, unlimited map streaks, all of their everything. It doesn't matter how good you feel like Navi are right now. People have felt like this about a number of teams throughout the history of the game. If you're just tuning in today, I get it, okay? I get the Simple hype. I get the Navi hype. I feel it too. I think the era will happen. Has it happened yet? No. Winning a Grand Slam online is not something that can be counted as part of an era. Winning IEM Cologne is a fantastic performance and a great event and all this stuff. But let's say Navi started losing every game from now. That's a thought experiment, okay? Navi start losing now. Navi start losing every single tournament and fall out. Did they have an era? No, right? Who would say they had an era if coming out of the online period they were dominant, they won the major, and then they just fell off completely? No. So what Navi need to do and what can happen for them and what I anticipate will, and I would literally predict that it would happen, is that they continue to get better. Bit in particular has so much room to get better. Who knows how much better he can get. And the team just continues to win, dominates on LAN. They have no threats. The teams around them crumble in terms of making roster moves. That's already happened now. And these roster moves will happen specifically because of Navi, right? We power through the bracket. Navi take out Vitality. Vitality roster changes. Gambit, they should, I had no reason Gambit need to make a roster move. It makes sense for Vitality somewhat, even though it might be a little bit weird the direction they're going next. We'll see. We don't know what's true, what's false, what's a maybe. And G2 as well. I wouldn't be surprised if a roster move happens there as a team to lose to Navi. A team without a dominant opper losing to a dominant opper in the final. Who would have thought? That's always going to be a problem for G2. They haven't won anything, okay? G2 look really good, but in 3 years, they haven't raised a single trophy besides some random, online game, cup or something, or small tournament that maybe was a LAN that no one can even name, okay? So they haven't actually won anything, and that was, even in the Liquid era, right? They managed to have a weaker Navi, so not a Navi this strong, and also avoided Astralis in some big matches to win their tournament, have their Grand Slam and stuff like that. But just in history, it's not to say that these teams aren't good or good for what they have, but teams like G2 and Liquid will never, in my opinion, will never be able to really solidify. I mean, Liquid needed that major on the end of it. G2 literally needs to win anything, and Navi have knocked G2 out of 3 finals in a row, 3 big finals in a row, 3 of the last LANs in a row, the major final, Cologne, as well as Kato, the 3 literal last LANs, they beat them in the finals. And let me explain this. Okay, people are like, oh, it's kind of close. It can only be kind of close so many. Listen, I'm a Liquid fan. I always copium and say, whoa, next time they can beat Astralis, but it just never happens. It can be competitive because the team is good, but if they're missing a critical player, and this game is becoming like, because of how hard it is to even win the best of ones, you can't fluke them anymore with the economy. There's so much comeback mechanic involved. You can't just streak and smash a team, 16-2, especially not at the level of G2 and Navi. So if Navi are better than G2, they just will win more often. It's that simple. They just cannot have such an off day to simply lose, and that's proven in their results. And that's the same thing for Astralis and Liquid. Navi need to continue from here and win more lands and connect this, in my opinion, to another major. And I mean, they might not need to connect it to another major to like have an era, but I think it would help, just be like, yes. And the goal, of course, when a team has an era is not to just make it to the finish line, just barely have an era, right? That doesn't make any sense. That's not the point of an era. An era is just a narrative concept that we're using to define, greatness and a point of history, dominance from a team over a period of time where everybody was so good, to really celebrate how insane something is, right? So we don't want the era to be defined by they just barely made it. They just barely had one. We want to have a period of dominance where they clearly were the best team in the world. Everything broke down around them. They invented the meta. They pushed the skill ceiling in the individual level. They had, a best player in the world at his prime. And then they just continued to win. And then they just won and won and won. They have one of the best coaches. Blade doing a fantastic job, as we'll see in this video. This intro is going on for a minute. I'm a little bit on a rant here, but it's important, okay? Sit down. Listen. Navi at this major, at PGL Stockholm 2021, they won the whole damn thing. Simple was the MVP. Potentially greatest major run in history. I think Cloud9 still rival because they had a really, really hard run overall. I compared the brackets all the way through. Still insane for Cloud9. They still beat the best team in the world in the final. They came in as the underdog. They won versus G2. They had to beat Astralis and Swiss. They had to do. It was really tough. I mean, they really had to. Those two runs are the two best runs of all time. And then people want to say the Gambit run is another fantastic run, but that's completely tainted by only having to beat Immortals in the finals. The most important match of the run is versus one of the weakest teams. So that one falls short for me. But this for Simple is crazy. I mean, didn't drop a map. First of all, most dominant run by far in a major in history. Didn't drop a map. Simple got the MVP. Everything looked good. They look like not only the best team individually, but also the best team. And that's what we're going to talk about in this video. That they weren't just Simple and friends. Okay? They weren't even just individuals that were all peaking at the same time. They were the best team. Okay? Nico put it best. They're the one team that is a step ahead of everyone else. Everybody else is beatable. And Nico proved that as they got to the finals. And nobody proved that Navi are beatable. They didn't drop a single map. Okay, you get close as much times as you want. You didn't win. Nobody beat them. Period. That's it. Should we get into the game? Okay, so we'll start off with the pistol round. And it was a good start for Gambit. But I would actually like to tie in the fact that they win in this pistol round to the fact that winning the pistol round and then losing the second can almost do worse, I think, for your mental health than doing the opposite or simply losing the pistol round to kick things off, right? Because here's a very hype moment. And I'd like to say that we have to characterize this game with the circumstances of the fact that this is a major semifinal. This is on LAN. A hot start can mean a lot for your everything, your mood, and everything, right? When you look back on a game that was very close, a lot of it will come down to the pistols in your memory. Like, oh, we dropped both pistols that game. We got ecoed here or there. You do all the free rounds, because pistols can be kind of random sometimes, mean the world, I think. And we see in this second round, Navi totally, I'm sure, totally take the wind out of Gambit's sails. Or so it felt, right? And Gambit continued to play a strong half and stuck to the game plan. And still were able to bring back some rounds, but I'm sure this did put a dent in their mental well-being, as I think it would naturally do to any team, good, bad, or whatever. I mean, there's a certain amount of RNG in Counter-Strike, and we could see Bit lining up a position where he is 100% comfortable that his gun isn't showing at all. And I'd say that this moment for Bit tells us a lot about Bit and how he plays. And for those of you who are real enthusiasts and fans of this channel and been watching along, you'll know that we watched a demo on Bit, and I had the criticism of saying maybe he's a bit too disciplined, right? And I would like to argue that in this game, we see that change live, okay? Where the stakes are the highest as well. Okay, but this second round is all about Boomich. You can see how he uses the smoke to not only get some damage in, but give himself an escape route back to the truck. And he's laying down the pressure, throwing the flash out so you can separate his engagements, and this pushes Gambit all the way off the site. He is a one-man army at the moment, and Gambit are very comfortable in these in the crunch time at the end of a round when they have to make a play like this. So they pause, they hit play again, they come back into the site. Boomich knows the fight will eventually come towards A because of the amount of time, and he shows off his fantastic mechanical abilities by putting down the damage. And here is the most beautiful part: outplay, outplay, and outplay again, as in the 1v1, Shiro is sent doing errands, running back and forth, going from end to end of his mouse pad, working as hard as he possibly can on his little mechanical keyboard to make the right read around the truck, and Boomich sends him back and back and back again with 4 seconds to spare. And you have to understand how nerve-wracking this is for both Boomich and Shiro, but more so Boomich, who has to commit to a jump up on the truck, who has to make sure he's playing off the audio cue, but more so playing off the game sense, right? This is rock, paper, scissors more than it is a game of audio. If you react just to the audio, Shiro will eventually catch you. So Boomich shows that not only was he feeling quick and the mechanics were on point, but he was in Shiro's head, which is a huge win, not just for Navi, not just for himself, but for both, you know, for the squad as a whole, I think. And we saw at this moment that, okay, Boomich is playing well in this series, you know. And when we think about stats, we think Boomich, he does make a lot of critical plays. He is a player in the Scout IGL meta, which means he has, you know, he's going to be dying a lot. He plays for a lot of information. He takes a lot of risks. He's caught with an MP9 tons of times, but he puts down his value, but his stats sometimes suffer for it. But if in the odd game, it's kind of like a Kerrigan, although I wouldn't classify them in the same kind of mechanical realm, even if it's somewhat a similar role. It's a player who, if he has great stats, they dominate because of the players behind Boomich, right? The players behind Kerrigan, if he has good stats, absolutely take over. And here is a spot where Bit takes a peek up to the top of the stairs. We can fast forward a bit, and this does just showcase that Bit is going to show some variety in the play in this half on CT side. Again, if you watched Is Bit Too Disciplined in my video, we looked at Bit playing top bathrooms nearly 15 rounds in a row, right? Not doing anything too interesting from round to round. And in this game, we're going to see him playing his spots, you know, 12 to 13 different ways. He plays a couple of positions on copy and paste, but the team as a whole always has something different going on behind it. And I think what was very special about this game is, I think, after a critical loss in a round, Blade called a pause and then called a fantastic setup that won a round. And overall, Navi showed so much variety in their CT setups. You couldn't help but become a fan. I mean, if you were watching, if you had your eyes peeled on this game, you would see that the most impressive part of all was just how hard they would have been to read because of the amount of different positions and styles of play and players in different spots that they had throughout this entire half, where, of course, they won 10 rounds in total. So here's a spot where, once again, Bit just wants to make sure that they can't rotate down lower, but he does find a moment where he feels it's time to decide to try to peek up and look for another kill. Shiro ends up putting him to sleep. No big deal. We move on to this next round after the player advantage is carried forward, and Navi have no problem closing out. And we can take a look at this. Bit jumping up. And how often do we see Bit try to make plays like this? Almost never. It's definitely a new player in that regard, and the stats have reflected it. Up until the semifinals or maybe even the quarters around playoffs, Bit was the best performer in terms of stats for Navi in the game so far. And I would say off of these first 4 rounds, it really felt like, all right, Navi are going to be in full control of this. Gambit are looking a little bit nervous. Maybe they're going to choke and fall in their face. Maybe they're going to play that few percent worse like they maybe did at Cologne and not be able to take a win versus a team that they normally beat online. And that's not at all to say that Gambit played badly at this major. They made it to semifinals, and that needs to be respected. But Of course, they played against Furia in the quarters, who they should beat every single day of the week, and it was kind of close. And they survived the Legend stage, but that wasn't in front of a crowd. So I think that Gambit got exactly where I thought. I predicted them to get the semis. All right. Perfecto dies here holding the Great. Electronic will drop his flash because he threw the molly and falls back. And this position, now that it's weakened outside of Monster, it becomes very tantalizing for Gambit. And I want to follow along closely here because this becomes part of Gambit's game plan to really exploit outside of Monster. Bit will find Inters trying to lurk off of the balloons, jumping onto the bench, and Hobbit finds his opening kill as 3 players exit out of Monster and put immense pressure on the B site now, and these weaker guns as well. So Perfecto Simple will end up getting a kill at the very least, but eventually will get taken down by another beautiful entry by Hobbit. And look, Gambit look like they're sharp once again, and this is where I was like, okay, this is a very serious game, actually. Gambit are still fully focused. They seem lucid. They're making good decisions. They're not getting scared. They're playing like themselves. Maybe Navi will actually have to fight quite hard to be able to pull this one off, and this is where we start looking once again at these different setups. And now, I would like to draw attention to this detail. Simple in this game, I felt like was the least mobile that I maybe have ever seen him. Okay, I've never seen anyone rotate less. And look at this set piece, okay? Electronic, the loose rifler on the play. Simple holding deep tunnels. And Electronic's only job is to make sure that nobody comes downstairs, because you can see Bit is not playing inside of the stairs. So this must be watched. And They give a lot of trust to him, and then Simple finds the gap, okay? Gambit, as we can see outside of Monster, have decided to keep the bomb out here. They look like they want to feign presence around the A site, but then simply go back to B later on. And Simple finds a gap where he takes out who was the biggest threat in that last round, and try to lock out the opportunity for them to go B if possible. But 45 seconds comes. There's still time for Gambit. They did pretty well in that last round to be able to re-exec and get back in. So there's, of course, still hope. But Navi are supposed to win this round 80+% of the time at their level. And Electronic, as they can trust him, will see this as an exec. And look at the rotations are coming back out. Look how tricky Gambit are. Okay, they close the door and run back upstairs to make it seem like a fake. And it's the perfect play for them. But Electronic, so damn trustworthy, will end up getting a single kill, and I don't know if both will be found. Perfecto moves back in, and they give it their best shot. Okay, and this is a moment where it's 4v5, but Gambit are still fighting. So this is just to shine a light on how Gambit are putting in work. This is their most competitive, and that's Navi finding a tactic at the beginning of the round to completely counter what Gambit were trying to do. So in this round, very expensive, of course, as they've got Gambit onto the pistols. Simple throws a bad smoke. And the reason for that smoke is so that the T's, when they see it, because of the perspective, you can't sometimes tell if there's a gap, or sometimes you can only tell there's a gap before it's too late. Simple doesn't see anything, but the other benefit is that if he holds that angle, he has full information on the cross there for as long as he wants to. So it is also an eco round where you're trying to look for this information. And here's where, okay, Simple's been playing good, but now you're like, okay, everyone's getting hyped. Simple's hitting some crazy shots as well. And while he quietly top frags at the end of the map, it kind of felt like a device top frag, okay? Simple never had that he's got one button on his mouse round. He didn't have that absolutely absurd no-scope, collateral, ace, clutch, against the ropes round, because they didn't need it in this game. I'm sure Simple was capable of it. But when we're talking about Simple at this major, we're talking about somebody who put up the stats that he needed to have, and stats that were leading the pack because he's the best player on his team and in the world, but not the plays of somebody who's playing by themselves. And I think that is what is the most jarring thing about this major run for Navi in the best way possible. He's being used differently, and at least here on Overpass, I think that was highlighted quite heavily with how Electronic or, a different rifler would be supporting him, but it wasn't one where he was consistently making enormous rotations around the map. And you'll see him rotate a little bit more on maps like Nuke and Inferno. But look at the set piece plays that we see on the CT side and how Electronic supports him, but Also, Simple supports electronic, and we try to get him into outpost positions where they can really tether off each other and make good plays. And this is always just good practice to do between a rifler and an op. But it was great to see, how long some of these setups would go on to try to make sure everything was in a perfect position. And look at Perfecto. He was jumped up on the site here, covering this monster hit, and Gambit tried to do something similar in this position, but Navi really never left their setup. And I think the other thing to draw attention to is the amount of short control that Navi had in this round without ever making a noise about it, right? They didn't brag about it. They kept short control. They quietly escorted Electronic out. He took a risk by not using nades to get out there. Once he was out there, B-site was a lot more fortified than Gambit had realized, but Hobbit was just chilling in the stairs, trying to make the same fake happen where they go back up to A, and Navi were hoping to lure them into making that play. They made that play, and then Navi used it against them by saying, hey, you think we're just taking short control? No. We have our Opera and Rifler again in this same setup that you didn't want to see. If you knew Simple is here, you wouldn't have gone B. But we also still have our Rifler and Perfecto to be an insurance, a next layer of defense in case anything goes incorrectly. So now we've got an anti-eco setup. It's clear to Navi, certainly, that the money is quite low. And the setup should be good. Okay, the setup should be good. We even have a well-timed counter flash, but instead what happens is a couple of fantastic pistol shots get hit, and then Gambit end up cleaning house. Now let's take our attention over to the A site, all right? Bit, once again, doing his best Fur/Rain impression, right? SK Fur or Phase Rain, and look who's throwing a flash. It's Boomich, making a cameo on the A site. So what do Navi do? They have to run all the way back around because it's clear that the B site is slightly weaker, and Gambit are looking for any possible opportunity that they can find. But the rotations are just about in time. There's a number of riflers, and Gambit will try to make their way outside a monster, which they know has to be weak in this position, and they're correct about it. And Perfecto will end up going down. The opening play is good. The trades back are also good. And now it's a little bit of bumper cars within the B site as Gambit attempt to approach. Re-smoke here, and this is where it's very difficult for the CTs and Ts as well, because they kind of know the approach is coming, but they know the approach is coming, that CTs can be right in their backyard in the back pit, but there's an agreement that they'll share the land, they'll split the profits, but the Ts will come out ahead, okay? The Ts are Tony Soprano, and the CTs are the corner store that are told that they're getting a good deal, okay? They're paying a hefty price for the security. They're getting rinsed, and they don't realize it. And that's the CTs in this position. So Gambit, once again, exploiting that monster play, trying to make the most of the fact that Navi put too many resources early rounds out towards A and left monster a little bit open. Still somewhat fortunate to be able to get in and work the site, but Gambit are going to be good for a couple of rounds like that. So kind of impressive, right? We're 6-4 here in this game, but you have Gambit winning a pistol round, and you have Gambit winning 2 4v5 rounds, right? So almost, foreshadowing that this is not the half that it appears to be. But look at Bit with the 2K rifle from the same position again. Ultra aggressive in the spot, and this is not the player that we saw earlier this year. There are serious contrasts to who Bit has become, and I think the most impressive part of all, right, is that it's a quantum leap. It's not just Bit plays well online, then he gets good online. Then he plays on LAN, then he gets good on LAN. It's Bit plays well, or Bit plays badly, Bit plays well online, then we go to LAN, and Bit gets better as if it's still online. That's the quantum leap. That's the maybe the best CIS rookie of all time. Maybe that's we can actually have a conversation about Bit and Zywoo, even though Zywoo got #1 player in the entire year with the Bit winning both his first lands, Major and IEM Cologne, and also arguably an enormous reason that Navi were even able to win, especially win without dropping a map, etc. and so forth. We all know how good Bit is at this point. We all know how good Bit is. The question is, how much better can you get, right? Because Bit ends up winning this game with a 77%, I hate to be the Department of Redundancy department, a 77 HSP. which doesn't sound quite as good as 77% HSP. So what now? I mean, that one's 3v5. We saw Gambit win a couple of 4v5, but Navi are losing. Navi are playing a little bit too well to lose a 3v5 as well. And we kind of keep tabs on Bit as he controls space out towards A. And it's all a ruse for Gambit. And these days, people are leaning towards Monster way, way more, I think, than people ever have been. There was a point in time, actually, where leaning towards B in general was more favorable. And the reason that teams lean towards B on T-side overpass is because there's no roof blocking you up for anything, okay? You have an Etch-a-Sketch on the site. You have full control to be as creative as you'd like to be. That's a heads-up move by Bit. Would have got naded in that spot. Maybe couldn't have escaped through the outside of divider, but stays alive and gets to a new position. So let's see how he's tethering right now. And how Boomich will help him. Oof. Okay, he can't. He cannot help him. Well, let's see about this round and see what Navi can do. Electronic is just laying down the pain. Look at the riflers coming into play, and this is the 4v5 from Navi's perspective. Okay, this is the round where you're like, holy smoke. Now you look up at the scoreline, you're like, wait, I thought this game was close, and now it's 8-4, and Navi just won that straight off their M4s, even though they're defending from back dice and Optimus, where in the CSGO textbooks they tell you on Overpass you do not want to fight from the A site as much as possible because there are not enough good places to stand. That one molly back dice and one molly and Optimus can push you out of all of the good spots, and it can be quite hard to win. Well, Navi just said, don't worry, we like that challenge. Watch this, they said. Here the flash comes out. And again, we've seen Simple be used almost as a role player in this game where he's been put on a position and he holds that position for a long time. And the riflers are the ones who have a little bit more liberty than he does, right? A little bit more autonomy to walk out, clear different angles. Simple's been used to lock something down to make sure no one crosses a certain line. And that seems to be maybe the healthiest possible way to use a player that's as good as him. And makes it really feel like there's more of a system around Navi and around himself than there ever has been. And that's the thing we have to remember, that Navi haven't gotten to a point where Simple's just playing the best CS of his entire life. It's that they have also improved to becoming the best team in the world by a good margin as well. I think Nico put it the best where he said that everybody else is beatable, but Navi are the only ones on another level, and that's just the facts. The only team that has been proven to be on another level at this point is Navi. And then okay, hold on. Let's take a look here at this moment in round number 14 before I kind of conclude and finish up the sentiment. But this is a spot where I feel like. You know, Navi really put it down here, and I feel made a statement in this half, made a statement at this point in the major, made the win seem so much real right here in the first half of Overpass in the first 14 rounds, and showed that even versus a really well-playing Gambit, their strongest opponent on paper, that there are too many things that they are doing well for Navi to be able to be beaten. And if Gambit were going to play this well and still pull out this much stuff and win a pistol and win 2 5v4 rounds and still lose a half 10-5 on their map pick, that this was going to be an indomitable Navi, right? That a Navi that was not going to give up too many more rounds. And I think that's why their spirit was broken and where we saw them completely collapse on Mirage. And more specifically, and more accurately, Navi collapsed upon them, right? And I think it's significant to see that the game just looks so easy from this point on, that now the rotations appear obvious. That's as far as I want to go in this demo. Yeah, but it's great to see. Oh, this is a long one. Hope I got my thoughts out. It wasn't exactly the most eloquent today. Hope you enjoyed that. Congratulations to Simple. Congratulations to Navi. Very satisfying major run. Looking forward to doing more videos very shortly. And yeah, stay tuned for those. So as always, be safe. Take care.